Mr. Thompson was a frail old man with shaky hands and a tendency to mumble to himself. He had lived alone in his creaky Victorian house for decades, ever since he outlived his wife and children. The neighbors hardly saw him and, honestly, were happy that way. The only time you'd spot Mr. Thompson was when he ventured out to collect his mail. A cursory nod if you forced eye contact was the most you could expect. One chilly October evening, Sarah, a cheerful young woman who had recently moved into the house next door, decided to introduce herself. Her friends warned her about Mr. Thompson's unsociable nature, but Sarah was undeterred. With a basket of cookies in hand, she knocked on his door. She waited, the eerie silence of the old house making her second-guess her decision. Just as she was about to turn away, the door creaked open. Mr. Thompson stared at her, eyes wide with a mix of surprise and suspicion. "Hello, Mr. Thompson. I'm Sarah, your new neighbor. I thought I'd bring you some cookies," she said, forcing a smile. Mr. Thompson's eyes darted around before he reluctantly accepted the basket. He mumbled a thank you and shut the door. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that he'd been watching her from behind his curtains. Days passed, and the unsettling feeling only grew stronger. Flickering lights and strange noises seemed to emanate from Mr. Thompson's house at odd hours. One night, Sarah was woken by a loud thud. She peered through her window to see Mr. Thompson dragging what looked like a large, heavy bag into his backyard. Curiosity gnawed at her, and against her better judgment, she decided to investigate. Sneaking into his yard, she found a freshly dug hole. Her heart raced as she tiptoed closer. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her shoulder. She screamed and turned to see Mr. Thompson, his face a mask of anger. "Get out of my yard," he hissed. Sarah bolted back to her house, but the image of the hole haunted her. The next day, she called the police. When the officers arrived, they found Mr. Thompson visibly agitated. The police dug up the hole, only to discover bags of soil and old newspapers. They inspected the house, revealing that Mr. Thompson was paranoid and believed the newspapers contained hidden messages from a conspiracy. His strange behaviors were the result of his growing paranoia. Sarah felt a surge of guilt, but also relief. Mr. Thompson was taken to a mental health facility, and the neighborhood returned to its quiet routine. But every time Sarah saw the empty Victorian house, she couldn't help but wonder what other secrets it might be hiding.